Hello, and welcome to our May 21st, 2024 program, sponsored by the League of Women Voters, Grand Traverse Area, and hosted by the Traverse Area Community District Library and Traverse Area Community Media. I remind everyone to please turn off any electronic devices. And also, I wanted to let you know that those of you here in person are our studio audience, and you're the live audience, and we are doing this also virtually, so others are watching from wherever they happen to be. I'm Ann Magoon. I'm a League member moderating this afternoon's program. We are happy to have ASL interpreter for today, Jackie Richer. Welcome, Jackie. The League of Women Voters is a national, nonpartisan organization. Our main mission is to empower and inform voters and to defend democracy. The League does not endorse or oppose candidates of any political party. The League promotes the active and informed participation of voters in government. It works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and it influences policy through education and advocacy. Membership in the League of Women Voters is open to women and men of all ages, and we do offer a discount for students. Today we have a very valuable presentation about composting. You will learn what composting is, why it's a win-win for people and the environment. We have 3 experienced, wonderful speakers to guide us. Because you'll want to tell your friends and neighbors about this program, I want you to know that it is being shown on Spectrum Cable Channel 189, Traverse Area Community Media website, and the lwvgta.org Facebook page, so it will be available after today. Actually, it's being shown live on those as well, but when you go home and tell your friends, it'll be still available. After the presentations, we can take questions from you, our in-person audience. You can ask questions by filling out a card and handing it to a League member. There should be a card and a pencil that will be coming around for you soon. Our speakers today are Megan Alexander, Sarna Salzman, and Lindsey Walker. Megan Alexander, owner of Carter's Compost since 2002, uses the tools in her toolbox to further improve the environmental impact of her community through organic waste diversion, with the ultimate goal to regenerate Michigan soils for future generations. She graduated from Michigan State with a degree in supply chain management. Sarna Salzman is the founding executive director of Seeds, Ecology, and Education Centers, a local nonprofit focused on implementing local solutions to global challenges at the intersection of ecology and education. Since 2018, she has been convening a regional group of partners focused on the reduction of organic materials going to landfills for the benefit of regenerating Michigan soils. Lindsey Walker has been with the Emmet County Recycling since 2007 as the Recycling Outreach, Market Development, and Commercial Accounts Manager. Lindsey has a passion for all things waste diversion, and her perseverance has led to consistent relationships with markets for many hard-to-recycle materials. She's also involved in recycling on the state level, has served on the Petoskey City Council since 2018, and holds a master's degree in sustainable development and management. So we're talking about recycling today, and I'm going to, before we let them talk, I'm going to recycle an article from a 1914 Record Eagle article about garbage disposal. This is 1914 Traverse City. The garbage disposal problem has been a live one in Traverse City for many years, but on account of the expense of incineration, nothing has been done, and refuse continues to pile up in backyards and alleys, breeding disease without any restriction. Because of the city's growth and the spreading of disease, the city now has a plan in which to move forward with an incinerating plant where everything of a perishable nature can be removed and burned. It is hoped to be completed before hot weather arrives. Think about it. Okay, so today we're going to start with Sarna.
I don't know.
I'm just wondering now if we had an incinerator at one point. I was not aware. I'll have to look that up. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Sarna Salzman, and I was asked here today in part to share with you some information about regional growth in composting and organic waste diversion. And I want to come clean up front. I am not a composting expert. I am not a farmer. What I am is the founding executive director of Seeds Ecology and Education Centers. Thank you for that introduction. And for nearly 25 years, Seeds has been working all over Michigan at that intersection, implementing local solutions with ecology and education. Over the years, we've helped over 60 local units of government and other institutions who want to go green, setting targets, identifying strategic climate and clean energy goals and opportunities, and delivering evidence-based planning and action. Of course, we don't just work with adults. We also engage people of all ages, and this is a photo of some of our Seeds Eco School elementary students from Marion who are on a field trip to see Morgan's Composting in Sears, Michigan. Lately, I personally have been working with an increasing number of folks on a movement to reduce the garbage currently going to landfills. This slide shows the Organic Waste Diversion Advisory Partners, of which these two colleagues are part of. And it includes 3 county government representatives, haulers, processors, policy advocates, and this work is currently being supported by both public and private dollars. We've been actively and intentionally collaborating since 2018, and we're focused on preventing waste, improving soils, and collaborating with our communities and with carbon. We are elevating a growing movement that is also being led by organizations like the EPA, the USDA, the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, ReFed, World Wildlife Fund, and many others. We're focused on this 10-county region of northwest lower Michigan by the pinky, and we are also staying focused and connected with other regional actors who are in this space in the state of Michigan and nationwide. Before we get too far, I want to really hone in on what the definition of organics in this context really means. We're talking about any material that, given the right conditions, will turn back into soil. So that means yard waste, woody material, including some construction materials, food scraps, manures, papers. Now, our goal, the partnership's goal, is to see 1/3 of the organics that are currently going to landfills diverted into higher and better uses by 2030. That means for this 10-county region, diverting 26,000 more tons, mostly food scraps. Food scraps and other organic material is the largest component of municipal solid waste by weight. It's 38% of what's going to landfills right now. And how many of us have ever had to carry a heavy, wet, stinking pile of trash to the curb? Does anyone enjoy it? Keep your hand up. What does that look like at the national scale or even the 10-county scale? The stuff is the #1 contaminant of other recyclable materials. It's heavy and expensive to move around. And in landfills, it's guaranteed to transform almost immediately into methane, which is an extremely potent greenhouse gas. So if you care about recycling, if you care about heavy trucks on our roads, if you care about global warming, if you care about biodiversity, then you, like me, are dissatisfied with the status quo. So the question our partnership asks is, how can we transform something we literally pay to have hauled away and guaranteed turned into methane into a valued commodity that ends up enriching our community's quality of life? This value proposition is a win-win-win one, where food scraps are composted to regenerate soils that grow even better food. The solution set is so doable, I can even do it in my backyard for next to nothing. And while our collective goal may be reducing garbage by a third, our vision is regenerating Michigan's soils by diverting organics out of landfills. For the last 50-ish years, too many of our extractive industries and practices have been robbing the land of its microbiota. These microorganisms found in and on all multicellular life, including plants and humans. This tiny stuff ranges from bacteria to fungi to microinvertebrates, and these creatures are crucial for the health and well-being of their hosts. Industrial agriculture has been a story of biome disruption, deforestation, tillage, pesticides, concentrated chemical fertilizers, and this has resulted in a global food and agricultural system that is now the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions. Ag runoff is the #1 source of harm to rivers and streams, #2 for wetlands, and this third source of harm to lakes. And on top of that, 35% of what we grow is surplus. I'm interested in a very different story, a regenerative story, a farming story that our great-grandparents would recognize more easily than the corporate factory farms of today. One where agricultural practices enhance water quality, increase biodiversity, and generate circular economies built for mutual aid. Conservation agriculture adheres to 3 core principles: minimize soil disruption, maintain soil cover, and manage crop rotation. Regenerative ag goes further, restoring degraded lands and continually improving soil health by restoring its carbon content and supporting soil and plant microbiota. I find it really interesting that the concentration of microbes in the soil of a garden, a prairie, a forest is overall not far off from the bacterial concentration of the human gut. And just like we need to invest in our gut health, because our unique gut microbiome helps us digest nutrients, influences our mood, our hormones, and supports our immune system, almost all plants invest in their community of microbes and fungi. We need to invest in the soil microbiome as a nature-based solution for climate-smart, resource-efficient, and stress-resilient agroecosystems. So in 2021, our Organic Waste Diversion Partnership commissioned a market assessment of our 10-county region to understand the flows of organics, what was already being diverted, and where the flows of organics going to landfills are originating from. This information is particularly useful now as the state of Michigan has launched a planning process requiring every county in Michigan to update their materials management plans with special attention to organics. These county plans are the enabling policy structures that define and limit all waste handling and hauling and establish community waste reduction and education goals. We are freely sharing all the county-specific organics data that we have, as well as the solutions recommended. And on this slide, you can see the difference between a very rural county, Missaukee, and the economic hub of the region, Grand Traverse County. Note the differing expectations of diversion rates and the responsibilities of those in the more urbanized areas to divert more in order to achieve region-wide that 33% goal. This data and its implications are critical for counties wanting to engage in great materials management planning and for all of us who want to participate in making more solutions more accessible. The good news is all we have to do is the good news is that we all do get to participate in a whole suite of solutions, each scaled appropriately to the circumstance. And the first solution I want to highlight is prevention. This is the one we all can do something about immediately, especially if you ever find yourself throwing out leftovers after dinner, or if you see your pantry overfilled with more material, more content than your household can consume. In the United States, 80% of food waste is generated by households and consumers. And this waste represents 2/3 of the lost economic value. Preventing waste in the first place is the best thing we can do for climate. So you see that number, negative 5,000 MTCO2e. Metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalents is the measure that climate specialists use in order to compare CO2 with methane and other greenhouse gases. So carbon dioxide equivalents, taking 5,000 tons of those out of our atmosphere is like taking the equivalent of 1,000 cars off the road, not EVs either. The next best solution is rescue. The rescue of wood to retain its carbon value and the rescue of food to feed our neighbors. Our market assessment suggests that it's feasible to double the tonnage of current rescue operations that are currently going on regularly. And we have some great partners like Food Rescue working on this. Small and medium scale processing, our goal is to see 5,000 more tons a year of this stuff going into feeding livestock, backyard composters, on-farm composting operations, community drop-offs, and the development of other soil amendments like biochar. It turns out that Northwest Michigan is a surprising bright spot for animal feed. Just ask your local brewer where they're sending their mash, and I bet you'll be pleased with the answer. You can also come to the Seeds Compost Petting Zoo at Historic Barnes Park and get real up close to 8 different backyard scale composting technologies that are on active display, from worm bins to bokashi. You can sign up for a class with our master composter, Joe Jaquelyn. Finally, the centralized composting solution. This industrial scale solution is projected to process the vast majority of the tonnage for our region. However, these centralized operations are generally only cost effective if they're located near a population center. So for Northwest Michigan, that means we could use 3 of these large centralized scale operations, one near Cadillac, one near Petoskey, and one here in Traverse City. And Traverse City is about to welcome a new piece of equipment, a 20-yard in-vessel composter. This machine, built from a shipping container, will land next month just across Woodmere Avenue from the library and fully visible from the TART trail. The city of Traverse City will have Carter's Compost, hauling food scraps to process in it, and Seeds will help manage quality control and community outreach. Though this container will only process about 150 tons of food scraps a year, it will be the first time the city is managing food scraps at all, and represents their good faith effort into helping us figure out how to pragmatically scale diversion and processing of operations. If the city of Traverse City became responsible for diverting just 5,000 tons of organics away from landfills and into composting, it could probably claim to have carbon neutral municipal operations, which is one of its 2025 goals. I want to leave you with this key point, that none of these solutions works without a complete value chain, from the generation of that waste material to its sorting and hauling away to its processing and then the distribution of that value-added product. One broken link and none of the system actually works. Why isn't there more composting going on right now? Because it's cheap and easy to landfill. It's normal to landfill. Anyone who doesn't want to put their organics into the landfill has to do extra work to find or create a complete value chain. Now, this can be as simple as from your dinner plate to your backyard bin, compost bin to your garden. But the bigger the scale, the more complexity is involved. And this is one reason to get the process of county materials management planning right. We need a suite of distributed place-based solutions to succeed. So 83 counties in Michigan have to get this right. Farming, soil, waste management, circular economies, these are only one set of plays in a much bigger solution set. We are, you know, at a global inflection point, and it really is up to each of us how we will proceed into the future. The work that needs doing is bigger than one strategy or one individual. And the best way to predict the future is to co-create it. And so I want to invite you to get on the bus and join us in this movement. Soil Lovers Unite. Thank you so much.
That's a great start. Thank you so much, Sarna. And our next speaker will be Lindsey, who will build on what we've already heard.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Those are going to be some big moccasins to follow here. Thank you so much, Sarna, for really setting the stage and the big picture of the challenge that we have globally, regionally, in the state of Michigan, in Northwest Michigan, and then at a very hyper-local level at our hearts and our homes, really. So thank you for setting that stage. All of that research and all of that context is absolutely relevant to the work that the three of us are doing, and also the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. Plan number 5 is to decarbonize industry, but also to remove about 50% of the food waste that's currently going to landfills in Michigan by 2030. So we have some pretty rigorous goals, and organizations like Carter's Compost and Seeds and aggregating, bringing people together is really part of that solution. So I am eternally grateful for the work that Sarna has done and really digging deep and making those connections in a 10-county region, because we all love this place where we live. So I'm Lindsey Walker from Emmet County Recycling. I've been with the county recycling program for 17 years now, and I love to come out and speak about our program because we have a unique model, but a lot of what we do at Emmet County Recycling is absolutely replicable, duplicable, and scalable to every context throughout our communities, not only in Northwest Michigan, but throughout our state. So at Emmet County Recycling, I really believe that you need to start and work with what you have. So we are a 30-year-old resource recovery program. We started with a woman from Ann Arbor who was driving the recycling truck in Ann Arbor, one of the oldest recycling programs in the state of Michigan. And she was hired by Emmet County Department of Public Works, a newly formed department within Emmet County. And she began with a vision of what the future was going to look like 30, 40, 50 years down the road. So never doubt what one organized person or a group of people can do to create change. So at Emmet County, I'm just going to kind of fast forward. You're going to be drinking from the fire hose right now, so forgive me, and I will try to be as articulate and intentional as I can for our non-hearing communities. This is a wonderful opportunity for me to present with somebody doing ASL. So work with what you have. At Emmet County, in the absence of national and state policy, we started to create our own ordinances, and really with the intention of materials are resources that don't belong in the landfill. So we have a system called pay-as-you-throw, which in Emmet County, when you control the waste stream, you control those opportunities for diversion from the waste stream. So we have a pay-as-you-throw system. We have a yard waste composting facility and a beautiful compost end product that we were making since 2006 out of yard waste, leaves and grass clippings. We have really awesome public-public partnerships with our townships and municipalities. We have commercial curbside recycling customers who are waiting for that next low-hanging fruit, no pun intended, to be able to divert their organics out of the waste stream. We had collection infrastructure. We had trucks. We had bins. We might not have had an organics collection truck, but we're going to modify what we have and make do with some innovation and cost effectiveness. We had seed money. So the county at that time, and this was bygone era, those days are way over with, but back in the day they gave us $50,000 seed money to do a pilot program and prove that we could collect organics commercially. Or maybe we do it residentially, or maybe we do both commercial and residential. So with that little bit of $50,000 seed money, we were able to roll out a collection program and a pilot program. We love pilot programs in 2015. So we had some resources, and boy, did we have passion and vision. So always, and as we're on the cusp, as Sarna mentioned, of materials management planning here in Michigan, this is going to be a great opportunity for all of us to get our big dreams out on the table here in Grand Traverse County, Leelanau County, Benzie County, Antrim, Charlevoix, all 83 counties are going to be able to engage in this process. So the same highlights for our program with organics diversion is dream big for what you want to achieve. We wanted to go for a comprehensive year-round food scrap collection and composting service. We're the haulers as well. A beautiful hyper-local closed-loop food system, recovery system that reflects the EPA's food recovery hierarchy, which we'll talk about. A circular economy of organics management in our community is a model for what is possible for others. Dreaming big, but starting small and realistic with the pilot program. International Compost Awareness Week was celebrated 2 weeks ago. It's always the first full week of May. And International Compost Awareness Week was all about fighting climate change, being a climate champion, reducing methane by diverting organics from landfill, as Sarna had mentioned as well, capturing that carbon, building healthy soils, and reducing the needs for fertilizers. Here's some photos of our yard waste composting facility. These big piles here are called windrows, and they're little hot ovens of biology and carbon and nitrogen and water and moisture mixed together in the right calculations to produce a beautiful end product, which is a finished compost product. Here are some examples of how we sell our compost once it's been screened and tested. We generate about 1,000 cubic yards. We make about 1,000 cubic yards of compost a year. The reduction of the compost is about 2/3 from raw feedstock product through the biological manufacturing process. We turn, take temperatures, and then produce a quality product. So when I hold that compost sample in my hand, whether I'm talking to elected officials or fourth graders, they're about the same, I'm looking at that scoop of compost and I'm saying, there is more biology in this handful of compost than there are human beings on this planet right now. To get that perception of our soils are alive, and we want to provide that opportunity to educate and show folks that, like, this is alive, as compared to soil that's been treated with fertilizers and chemicals and fungicides and herbicides. There's no biology in there, so you got to put all kinds of inputs in there to make stuff grow. This stuff has all the biology, all the components to make stuff grow. Public-public partnerships. Of course, there's yard waste drop-off sites scattered throughout our state because the one piece of policy we do have is a yard waste ban, on landfill ban. So that started in the late 90s, and that helped to grow a very nascent composting industry here in Michigan. And we're still growing and changing and evolving. So yard waste drop-off site at the city of Petoskey, another yard waste drop-off site in Resort Township right outside of Petoskey and Bay Harbor. And as part of those public-public partnerships, we're picking up the yard waste from that drop-off site, and then we are making compost, and then at the Emmet County Road Commission in the city of Petoskey and the Little Traverse Bay Bands of Odawa Indians, road construction projects and the reseeding of the grass and the planting of the trees and the planting of plants and rain gardens along those road construction projects is utilizing Emmet County Recycling's compost. So there's a very hyper example of a little circular economy that we are trying to nurture in our community. We have amazing commercial curbside recycling customers. At Emmet County Recycling, we are the educators, we're the drivers, we're the haulers, we're the recycling processing facility, we're the compost site, we are the wood recycling site and a super drop-off area. And by controlling all of those things, we control the opportunities to grow really rigorous diversion opportunities for our businesses and our residents. Here we have several examples of restaurants and businesses that were recycling with us for decades, and now they are amazing composters as well, and they're looking at opportunities to reduce their waste and save energy in their businesses. Here's a photo of our curbside recycling truck. We took one of those modified public drop site bins. Now, many of you here in Grand Traverse County currently probably recycle with GFL, which is your local hauler and recycling processing facility here in Traverse City, formerly American Waste. So back in the day, we used to have all kinds of drop sites scattered throughout our counties and communities. We still use those for rural recycling in Emmet County, and we happen to have the right truck and equipment, and we could modify it. that little bit of seed money we had, and we invested in commercial recycling carts by Cascade Manufacturing right here in Grand Rapids in Michigan. So here's a little innovation, what I like to call duct tape and super glue, boys and girls. So our modified 30-yard drop site bin, older model hook lift truck, our new Perkins cane lift. We installed a little spray wash tank because we know that the yuck factor in composting has to be mitigated. We like to keep things nice and clean and green to incentivize people to compost and separate their food scraps. So anything we can do to kind of mitigate the yuck factor and keep things clean and green for our customers. So a spray wash tank was a great way to add that onto our truck. Here's a photo of our truck tipping after its route. We provide once-a-week service in Emmet County on Tuesdays. Come this week, Memorial Day week, we switched to twice-a-week service because of the increase in our population. Similar to your county here, Emmet County, 36,000 residents year-round. And come 1st of June, our population quadruples in Emmet County. So with that comes an addition of lots of garbage, and lots more recycling, and organics as well. So twice-a-week service starting this Friday, and here's an example of about the 1.5 tons of material that we collect on a weekly basis. The dollars and cents. So here's just a fast fact of how much money we spent in that first year of a pilot program. I like to show the numbers because people are always very curious, like, how do you do this? How much did it cost? And so just highlighting the numbers is very helpful for people to get a glimpse of that you can really do this on a budget, and you can do so with seed money and a lot of innovation and philanthropic money, as well as Rotary Charities here in Traverse City has been essential, as well as our Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation in helping to fund seed money for our different projects. As Sarna outlined as well, the big task is how to keep food waste reduction at the forefront. How can we reduce our food waste? Because the prevention and the rethinking of food waste is really essential to get us to those numbers of diversion. So source reduction, feeding hungry people, food rescue, food insecurity in our state, it's like 9%. How do we making sure that we are recovering food that could be feeding people, feeding animals? And then, of course, composting is just above landfilling, but I would say that composting really has a role because of its community nature. Here's just an example of, on the residential, the Natural Resources Defense Council has a great program called Save the Food. They've done a lot of research and provide a toolkit for communities to use to help them educate the consumer and really work with families and individuals because of the sheer volume of residential food waste in the waste stream, which Sarna highlighted as well. So a family of 4 spends about $1,500 a year on food they don't eat. And it kills us. It makes us feel bad about wasting food. It feels like you're doing the wrong thing. So what are the ways that we can kind of win the hearts and minds of our residents in Emmet County and beyond to save the food and rethink about food and how you prepare it and not going to waste? And so every American wastes about 290 pounds of food a year. Here is the quintessential 30-gallon trash bag. I think that every Michigander can kind of relate to what this looks like. A 30-gallon bag of trash is kind of like the standard unit of measurement for a pay-as-you-throw system or a bag incentivized system. So even, this is on a national scale, but half of the trash is going to be your plastics, your hazardous materials, other things, but that other 50% is all organics, which could be diverted elsewhere. Here are the things we accept for composting: anything that was once alive. So your fruits, vegetables, meats, bones, proteins, and also BPI certified compostable packaging are all part of our system. Here's our Give All Food a Future. We incorporated this campaign, and it's targeting residential food waste reduction. In 2017, we partnered with farmers markets and our existing commercial food scrap customers to host these carts where our residents could come and drop off their food scraps. They're also signing a pledge of how they're going to reduce their food waste at home. And then, of course, we celebrate the numbers. In 2023, Emmet County Recycling celebrated 4 million pounds of food waste saved from landfill since the beginning of our program in 2015. And so we share those with our communities. Every year at the beginning of the calendar year, we share last year's data. We meet with the customers. We ask them how the program went this year. Are there new opportunities for diversion? And how can we get these numbers higher, and how are we reducing food more and more? So just sharing the data is really important with the customers so that those employees that are in that business understand that as part of the Real Recycling Promise, their recyclables are coming to Emmet County, they're being processed and marketed to Michigan markets, and your food scraps are being turned into a valuable soil amendment that you can help close that loop by using in your business or your landscaping at home or in the community in general. Manna Food Project is our food rescue and our food bank in Emmet County. And the Grain Train Natural Food Cooperatives, also like Oriana Food Cooperative, a food cooperative is based in the community, and they're using, both of these organizations are using best practices for reducing food waste, feeding hungry humans, food rescue, and then at the very end of things, composting with us what they can't salvage. Here's an example of a business, Recycler of the Year Award in 2019. This is the back lot, very similar to the food trucks you have here. What is it called again? The Little Fleet. So we, David Meikle at the back lot in Petoskey generated a business kind of similar to the Little Fleet. And he started off, he's like, I want to be zero waste, so everybody's got to use compostable packaging. And we are going to compost everything and recycle what we can recycle. And that should result in almost a zero waste operation. Here's a picture of our compost facility. And our friend KK, a farmer who worked for ZB Mijuang, the tribe's farm up in Carp Lake in northern Emmet County. He has worked with a variety of different farmers over the years, and here he's showing at ZB Mijuang the carrots grown with Emmet County Recycling's compost. Here's pictures of my coworker Jana Steffel and myself. Jana and I both attended the United States Composting Council Compost Operator Training at Michigan State University in 2022. Here we are with images of our finished compost, the screener that we contract with. We don't own this equipment ourselves. We contract with local excavators to do a lot of this work because we can't afford the equipment, but we love to partner with the private sector to provide those services for us. Here's her and I practically eating the compost, but we're just smelling it. Celebrating the nematodes and the microbes and the amoebas in the soil. Here's an example of your backyard composting. This is my friend Amy Freeman. She and I co-chair the Michigan Organics Council, and here she is the real deal backyard composter. So here she shows her food scraps from her kitchen and these beautiful leaves that she has mulched with her lawnmower before integrating into her backyard system. Time and temperature, baby. You got to have those microbes. You have to have the temperatures up there. I think she's at 110, so getting to those mesophilic temperatures, almost up to thermophilic temperatures, to burn off the pathogens and weed seeds. At Emmet County Recycling, we always focus on the hyper-locality of backyard composting. It's the lowest carbon footprint. Here's our bulk compost. You load it for $30 a cubic yard. You can bring buckets if you want to. I've seen somebody open up the hatch of their Subaru and put a tarp down and just load their Subaru up with our fresh compost. If we load it with our loader, it's $40 a cubic yard. And of course, we sell it bagged. My mom prefers this version. As an 84-year-old woman, she can pick up one bag of compost, but if you had to haul those 5-gallon buckets or move it in bulk, it would be more challenging for her. So I love to get my mom bag compost at Mother's Day every year. And here's just celebrating International Compost Awareness Week. Every year, that's a celebration for all of us in the composting industry, and we love to share the stories of composting and let folks know that composting is as easy as what you can produce in your kitchen and make quality compost in your backyard. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was great, Lindsey. Appreciate it. And we have one more speaker, Megan. Tell us about local Carter.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Alexander. I am with Carter's Compost, owner-operator, and if you kind of think about a bit of a funnel, Sarna had a very large picture and a lot of really great information, not only from a regional perspective, but breaking down even like Grand Traverse County. Talk about some hands-on with what Lindsey is doing, and in Emmet County, and faceted with commercial and residential services. I am toward the smaller end of this funnel, although I would argue to be just as impactful in my own little way. We talk a lot about having different cogs in the wheel of composting solutions here in our region, so it's not a one-size-fits-all. It is all of these different systems working together to get to that goal of a 30% reduction, 33% reduction in food scraps going to waste. So community composting is kind of the name of my game. We work here in Traverse City, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we work and a little bit about our history. So as I said, I'm Megan Alexander. I actually purchased Carter's Compost originally in 2021. What year is it? 2022 is what I did. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the journey prior to me being involved, because it is a long-standing one. I believe many people here are probably familiar with Carter's Compost in different ways. You're going to hear quite a few things from me that you've already heard, but repetition is king here, or queen in this example, and we can't harp on any of these things enough. They're fabulous messages to learn and to teach others as well. So you'll hear me talk about food waste reduction and the circular economy and a circular life cycle of compost too. So a lot of the same things, slightly different contexts, so hopefully it's digestible in a different way. Pun intended. I always like to give a little call out. I use a lot of resources, a lot of local self-reliance, Institute of Local Self-Reliance, SEEDS, Michigan Organics Council. So you'll see some resources here that I've already shown you even, that are also very accessible online. And I know that we've been putting together a lot of different resources. Ask any of the three of us if you see something that you're like, ooh, I want to know more. We can help you find a lot more. So food waste reduction is, and I'm going to use something Lindsey already used, but this is, top of the food chain, so to speak. If we use the food more, purchase the food more smartly, use it and retain it with better practices, Tupperwares and things like that, freezing things, using our leftovers, it kind of goes into an order that you want to say, okay, let's, as individual residents, what can I do? And the impact can be huge. To put it into some perspective, I put it in swimming pools and football fields. And this is, how much waste we are putting in our landfills right now that can be used to make something else. So it is not waste. It is scraps. It is organic materials that have more life in them to give. We just have to do the work to get them back out there. There are different food hierarchies, food reduction waste, I should say, hierarchies. This is one from the Institute of Local Self-Reliance. So before composting, again, there are options. Food rescue in Grand Traverse County is phenomenal, and in Northwest Michigan. But local composting solutions is where I kind of weigh in a little bit more. Because while I am a business who can pick up food scraps and process them for people, it's very attainable to do this in your own backyard as well. It is the closest and smallest loop that you can create. It does not need to be intimidating. Science is fun, and science is forgiving. So if you have a pile in your backyard that you've kind of neglected, don't fear. It can be salvaged, and we can all have these different resources to kind of do that. Why compost? This is a fabulous little handout that SEEDS put together that's very specific to our county and our region. But at the core, you're getting carbon back where it wants to be. Carbon wants to be in the soil. It does not want to be in the atmosphere. So when you're sequestering carbon from the atmosphere, that means you have fewer trucks on the road. You have less weight on the roads. You have those organic materials out of landfills that are producing methane gas. And it also, we've talked about this, a little bit of a wonderful broken record, and regenerating our soils. It's hard to believe that our soils, when you go to a grocery store, you would think our soils are lush and happy because look at all this that it's producing. But the fact of the matter is that most of the practices that are used to make what you might find on the Meijer shelf, you might not be so pumped about. And compost is a way to regenerate that soil so that it does have all those microbiomes in it and it is living soil. Soil health is human health, and when you have that alive and healthy soil, you'll have alive and healthy humans. So that is something that we as a group are very passionate about. The compost life cycle, again, you've seen this once or twice already, but when we think about it here with Carter's, we tried to take this larger life cycle that Lindsey is doing at a county level, and we take it even closer to home. So that life cycle looks like my 5-year-old eating a lemon and of course not loving it, going into the bin, being combined with browns to make compost that goes back into maybe not growing a lemon in this region, but some lettuces and other things. So this is a perfect hyper-local example of how we can reuse what is going into landfills. So Carter's Compost started in 2012 by an 8-year-old boy named Carter, who was collecting scraps from his neighbors and processing those scraps in the backyard. You've heard us say things like hauler and processor and distributor. These are just supply chain terms that say, okay, I'm the one that has the truck, or I'm the one that has the windrow in the field, or I'm the one that's putting it into a bag. And sometimes people play a lot of those parts. Sometimes you play 1 or 2 of those parts. But you have to have, as Sarna mentioned, all of those parts to make the circle flow. Carter's was the hyper-local version of all of those parts. This boy went to houses, picked up scraps in buckets, brought it to his house, turned it, and made finished compost that people could then go and pick up. So in 12 seasons, Carter and his group of bucket slingers, is what they were called, had a really phenomenal impact to Grand Traverse area, Traverse City area. They biked over 3,900 miles. Every pickup was done on a bike or by foot. They diverted over 67,000 pounds of food from landfills, distributed compost to local gardens, farms, and residents, and forged partnerships that you might have remembered, for example, the old original Oriana bins. That was a partnership with Carter's. So a lot of these little, seeds have been planted and grown in a lot of different ways thanks to Carter's Compost and what they started. I am of no relation to Carter, in full transparency. I often am questioned if I am his mom. I am not. But we do have connections, and it was very important to me that when Carter was graduating high school and moving on to the next adventure of his life, that Carter's Compost doesn't disappear and doesn't, get forgotten. And so I took that on in 2022 was my first season with Carter's Compost. We have historically run from May to October, bicycle-oriented, not a lot of people really huffing around on their fat wheels in the middle of winter, although there are some. And each year we have grown our capacity and grown what we have taken on from our local residents. So our capacity continues to grow while we focus residentially. Sarna mentioned Traverse City is getting this awesome in-vessel composter, and we'll be hauling for that, which is going to be commercial. So we will get into some more restaurants and other larger accounts to capture more of this. The goal, obviously, is to divert as much as we can, and I love working with people like Lindsey and Sarna, but also, statewide with the Michigan Organics Council and their conferences and their forums. And again, if you ever want to get into any of these resources, they are plenty. Getting hot piles. Where am I at there?
130.
130. Woo. So residential composting options that exist currently with Carter's Compost include curbside pickups. We are on our bikes already this season and picking up in downtown Traverse City. There are a couple of drop-off options. One is on Old Mission Peninsula at Lightwell Lavender Farm, and we compost right on farm there, as well as the farmers market. We just partnered this year. We piloted last year, just partnered officially this year with the Sarah Hardy Farmers Market in Traverse City to have a drop-off for residents as well. So you can bring scraps from home, dump them there, and we will process them. A little bit about service area. Again, all the way up the peninsula has that peninsula drop-off. We have downtown on the bikes and Sarah Hardy Farmers Market if you're coming from outside of any of those regions. And then the commercial pickups will be added here shortly. This is an example of something that, again, is a cog in that wheel. And there are so many community composters throughout Michigan that are doing really awesome and innovative things. I'm very proud to be going into the third season of Carter's, and each year we have more than doubled our inputs or what we have captured. So in the first year we captured about 6,000 pounds from 50 households. Last year we hit 14,000 pounds, almost 100 households. This year maybe we'll double it again, but and that's always the goal is to capture more and get that compost out back into the community to regenerate things and get better finished product and better, healthier soils that make food that is tastier and more nutritious. So if you ever have any questions about Carter's Compost, I wanted to give a really super hyper-local example of how these concepts that Sarna and Lindsey have talked about can be applied in any community. So if anyone's tuning in from outside of Traverse City, this is a system that can be implemented anywhere and everywhere, and we need all of these cogs in all of the wheels to make it all happen. So thank you very much for having me. If you have any questions, here's a little bit of contact information. A lot of information is on our website as well.
Another great presentation. I learned so much, and I love composting, so this is great. Remember that there are cards. If you have a question, please jot it down on your card. If you want it directed to a specific individual up here, please put that on also, and then just hold your card up and it will be delivered for us to present to the speakers. Looks like we're going to have a few, but we have some already here. So for our presenters, we have lots of questions coming in, so I'm going to let you choose who wants to answer something, and if you want to add to something already said, that's great. Please try to keep answers short, and so we can get to as many questions as possible. So thank you. Okay. Can you compost in northern Michigan throughout the winter?
Yes.
Resounding yes.
Absolutely.
It slows down a little bit, but don't be discouraged. If you're doing it in the backyard, I say keep your lasagna layers going. It means you might need to hoard those leaves at the end of the year, so don't let the city take them. If you are doing it that way, keep them in your yard and bag them and just pull from that. Keep it going.
Yep.
Thank you. Are all paper products compostable?
The answer is no, not all paper products are compostable. A lot of paper products are treated with chemicals chemicals similar to PFAS as a moisture retardant, as a variety of different treatments to make paper not absorb water or to shed water. And also a lot of paper products are laminated with plastic or poly and clay-based chemicals as well. So the only paper that we compost, you can compost newspapers, you can compost corrugated cardboard that does not have tape on it, and you can compost what we, in our industry, we talk about BPI certified compostable products, and those are certified and tested in commercial composting facilities that they will break down over a certain amount of time. So no, not all paper products are compostable.
If I can add to that too, it really depends on how you intend on composting them. What Lindsey said that's key is commercial. If you are using a BPI compostable material and you want to compost it, don't put it in your backyard bin. It will take a very long time to break down. The commercial setting is where that is intended to break down.
Thank you. I've downsized to a condo. What are my options to do my part to reduce waste? I no longer garden.
I mean, there's still a variety of solutions there. One high-intensity solution is to go for a worm bin that can fit in a drawer or under your sink, and you too can be into animal husbandry and tend hundreds or thousands of worms. It takes a little care. They like their food chopped up small, but it can work really well, and that worm compost product, the castings, is like not only great for your garden, but great for houseplants. Lower intensity solutions, find a drop-off, hire carters. Depending on where you are located, you might have different options. Start a movement to have a drop-off. Find your local, where's the closest garden to you? Are they already composting? Could you add to whatever they have going on in their pile? In my neighborhood, we have a compost pile, and some of our neighbors come and I'm like a micro community drop-off. So I think finding someone that you can drop your stuff off to. In fact, I have one neighbor who picks up from another friend of hers who puts her material, she's very low user, in her freezer until she sees my next door neighbor again and hands her this frozen block of food scraps to take to my backyard. So I think there's a lot of options there.
What do I do with extra backyard compost? A recent soil test of our raised vegetable bed showed too much compost.
Find a friend.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what too much compost means, because compost that's created in a backyard or on a commercial scale with us has really no limitations to its usage. And I say that because I know that ours is tested. So I guess too much compost would mean like, hey, it's just a soil amendment. Put it around trees, take it to the park, put it around some plants and bushes there. And like Sarna had mentioned, composting creates community. So if you don't have a source of leaves for your backyard composting, chances are there is a neighbor in your community that has leaves and maybe is elderly and doesn't have the time or willpower to collect those leaves from those oak and maple trees. So too much compost sounds like a dream.
That's a business opportunity also for that person.
This one is addressed to Megan. How much do you charge to pick up, and how often do you pick up?
Perfect. I have two different options for pickup cadence-wise. So it's every week or every other week. Our weekly subscription is $24 a month, and our every other week subscription is $12 a month. The drop-off is $16 a month. We also have a pay-as-you-throw option at the Sarah Hardy Farmers Market. I often tell people to put things in their baggie in the freezer. When you go to the market, you can pay $4 to dump that baggie in the bin and go shopping.
And then, do you get any compost?
All of the subscribers get a bag of compost every 6 months.
Okay. And the pickup is for
5-gallon buckets.
5-gallon buckets.
Yep.
Thank you.
Of course. Good questions.
can't read this question, I'm sorry. This is from someone who has composted for many, many years, including in the Netherlands, and does her own composting, self-composting in a tumbler. And she's looking for advice. Her question is, my compost is like soft manure, not sure how to get it to the final stage of crumbled soil. And who would she go to find out about perfecting her self-compost?
I have an idea. Again, back to not reinventing the wheel and using resources. The Institute of Local Self-Reliance just released, well, maybe it was last year actually, a home composting 101 video series. And one of the videos is compost troubleshooting. It's phenomenal. Too much moisture, to not enough heat, to not enough, it's smelly, whatever those kind of common issues might be. There is a 8-minute video on how to troubleshoot some of those things. So I would encourage you to check that out.
And I'll just add, we're ramping up offering in-person classes. So if YouTube just whets your appetite and you want more and a real master composter to do a Q&A with, I would go to the Seeds website, ecoseeds.org, and you can see classes coming up. I think our next one is June 4th. And learn from a master composter. And MSU has also launched an online course, self-directed course for that you can then take a test afterwards if you choose and become a certified master composter yourself.
If it's manure, I would say it's probably needs some more carbon, so I would add more leaves. But also, if you're using a tumbler, tumblers are difficult in that it's not a passive system like the layering system that we tend to employ in backyard composting. If it's too wet and it's like manure, I would guess you need more carbon. But once again, it's kind of like baking a cake. You don't want to add a new ingredient like flour after you've already gone through the process. So maybe cleaning out the bin and starting fresh and new, and maybe using that as an amendment right away, or integrating more leaves into the mix. 'Cause that's going to bring in that more carbon and reduce the moisture and the manure-ness of your product.
And we will also recommend that she and all of you take a look for the handout that's on the back table. It's called Home Composting, Reap a Heap of Benefits. And this might give some more specific advice on that. So that's at the back table for all of you in person here today. For Sarna, what are your thoughts on the use of sink garbage disposals?
I get asked this question regularly. Is it better to throw it in the trash or in the garbage disposal? And my answer, I think Lindsey will be proud of me, is neither one is the right answer. They're both suboptimal, and we can split hairs about who is the utility provider for your wastewater treatment plant and what their portfolio looks like. But the bottom line is that's a resource that's kind of getting wasted and turning into methane one way or another. So I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to say the best thing to do is to keep that stuff out of your waste stream and into some kind of value-added chain. And also, when I say that, listen, no shame on anyone who's throwing food away. I do it too, right? I'm in a place and there's nowhere to compost. That banana peel is going in the trash. We have all inherited a system that we do need to be hard on. It's a very frustrating system that we're saddled with here. But as individuals, we need to be kind to each other and with one another. No shame, no guilt. This is like victim shaming, and that is like a big no-no in our space. So if you need to put that down the drain, you do that to keep your family happy, and we'll keep working to find you a more accessible solution that's better than that.
Okay, maybe along those lines, in the kitchen, any thoughts, any of you, on indoor compost makers, the kitchen on top of the counter?
Big one.
We have thoughts.
Okay.
I'll start, if that's
Okay.
okay. So the United States Composting Council just came out, and that's like our national, our national organization that works with composting, all scales of composting, from backyard to community to large-scale commercial or governmental. And those are actually dehydrators. What they're doing is they're taking the moisture out of food scraps, which is also what makes food scraps very stinky, is the moisture in there. And so, yeah, it's dehydrating, taking out the moisture, and what you have is a bunch of dried food. It can then be used for backyard composting, but that product itself is not compost. Compost requires the biological degradation of food scraps. It requires carbon and nitrogen, and don't forget those amazing microbes to be able to be into a product. So a dehydrator is a dehydrator, and it serves a purpose. And if it's getting people closer and it's a clean system to composting, but just call it what it is. It's a dehydrator, and it serves a purpose, and then it can be, that dehydrated food scraps can be used in composting applications.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. If you have grass clippings that have been sprayed with any kind of chemicals, can you put those in your compost heap?
Yes. So on a commercial scale, and I'll speak about this commercially and in backyard composting, you oftentimes at a commercial scale, you don't know where leaves are coming from. You don't know where grass clippings are coming from. More common practice now is to lay the grass clippings, and that's obviously the highest and best use, is to regenerate and put that material right back where it was started from. In the biological decomposition process on a commercial scale, time and temperature is really important. Pathogens, weed seeds, fertilizers, and chemicals are burned off at 130 degrees. So you have to get to those thermophilic temperatures in order for those things to break down. And when you test the final product of compost, you can do a persistence herbicides test. They're very expensive, but those are available, and you're batch testing compost, so you're not getting like the complete picture. So yes, the grass clippings are compostable. Composting them in your backyard is probably the lowest hanging fruit and the highest and best use for them. But commercially, we also don't know where it's coming from, so we just have to assume, as long as we're maintaining our piles correctly, we're taking time and temperature, we're turning them, we're paying attention to what's breaking down in the piles when we're turning them, yes, they are very compostable.
I just want to briefly add, though, in case it's not already obvious, the finished product has a varying value depending on what went into the product in the first place. And so it's really important to know where your compost is coming from and know who's managing it. Are they getting it tested? What are you going to use your compost for? Is it going on food, or is it going on just visually appealing plants? The range of finished compost really is a range of product that has a range of value attached to it. So you can find very high-end compost mixes, and those people will tell you exactly what material went into the mix and who tested it and certified its authenticity.
Thank you. Another question for Sarna. Food and wood rescue were mentioned in your presentation. Can you describe what wood rescue is?
Yeah, thank you, whoever asked this question. So SEEDS is really involved in this from a climate adaptation and mitigation strategy space. And so the food scraps are really important, but we're equally interested in all streams of organics management. And wood rescue is something that we're particularly interested in right now because, carbon is drawn down from the atmosphere by woody plants, so trees and bushes. All that woody material is atmospheric carbon that has been photosynthesized and pulled back into the soil. And so what can we do to retain that sequestered carbon is as important a question to us as how to prevent further emissions going up into the atmosphere. So every time a tree comes down for reasons outside of our control, I mean, the best tree is a tree that's alive and standing and continuing to sequester carbon. But sometimes they come down, and we're doing what we can to elevate this discussion and dialogue by rescuing that lumber from those downed trees. And then we at Seeds use that lumber as a training material for our EcoCore members to learn some basic carpentry skills and so kind of closing the loop there. But any reuse of a woody material is better than seeing that wood composted or burnt. Just to retain the carbon, right? All this work is about carbon drawdown. How we have too much atmospheric carbon. It used to lie under the earth. How do we draw it back down out of the atmosphere and put it back into the earth where it is safer for all of us? Science and soil. Soil's the best at it.
This might be a question that could be its own program. I'm not sure. So for any of you, if you want to speak about involvement with young people who are the future of everything, and just whether your organization is involved, and if so, quickly, how? Megan, do you want to start?
I'll start. Yeah, I think we all could agree that the kids are the best teachers, and because Carter's started with a kid, I like to keep that legacy flowing. We partner right across the parking lot here with the Grand Traverse Children's Garden. So we do at least one session a year with the kids to learn about composting. Other events that have kids, I actually brought a book called, that's a kid's ABC book just about composting that I got here at the library. So kids are the best teachers. They teach their parents, they teach their grandparents. So if you teach the kids, we'll all be composting before we know it.
Well, the best ROI, the return on investment of an hour of education is with the youngest person possible because they've got the longest leadership train ahead of them, right? And I think, Megan, you were saying that too. So Seeds, we do a lot of youth education. We come into contact with over 1,500 students every year and spend a lot of quality time with them in after school and during school settings. All of our schools are doing some kind of gardening program, and many of them are composting. The ones that aren't, generally, we haven't figured out how to deal with the bear pressure that is outside their building in, say, Rapid City. So we're still working on that conundrum. And then our EcoCore is our career exploration program, and those folks are actively managing the compost petting zoo at Seeds at Historic Barnes Park. So they're learning about the process by hauling material from customers and actively processing it at Historic Barnes Park and distributing it. So we're really working our hardest to introduce and inform people of all ages in this space, and we're looking to grow that kind of impact in collaboration with our awesome partners.
At Emmet County Recycling, obviously, kids make up a certain percentage of our population. So for November, November is America Recycles Day, and it happens to fall on opening day in northern Michigan, which is like, these kids are out in the woods hunting with their parents. They're not necessarily on a recycling tour. So we do that. I think the pandemic really, for us at Emmet County and working with our schools, it really took us out of the schools at that time. And it's kind of like that getting back into the school systems. Now in Michigan, all schools qualify for free lunch. And unfortunately, we understand the need because of hunger in our communities and throughout the state, the need to serve food and making sure that kids are getting the nutrition. But what's happening inadvertently, all good intentions, is there's a lot of waste happening in our cafeterias in the front of house. So how do we work with both the Michigan education departments and our schools to cooperatively address hunger as well as food waste, and how do we make that connection for building soils in local communities? So always room for improvement. And that would be a good intention for us as a community to really address the food waste that's happening in schools, and how can kids be involved in that process of understanding that connection between hunger and rebuilding soils and composting and recycling, and making sure we're using our resources to the best that we can. And also we're food rescue, like those little lunches and the Good Samaritan legislation, those could be going to a food shelter, and we just need to figure out those systems for recovery and taking care of our community.
And I'll just add, if there are any educators or parents who are super involved in their school out there, the World Wildlife Fund has a bunch of great curriculum to do like a school lunchroom waste audits, share tables, and involving the students in that process. So we're working with them to pilot some of these programs in northern Michigan here. In fact, MESIC schools, elementary school, just had its first waste audit today. So.
And Megan, do you know how Carter first got involved as an 8-year-old starting his composting business?
I mean, I don't know if I know the exact story besides passion and some motivation from other family members and some commitments from the community to make things better.
All right, thank you. Is there any place where we can go see one of these compost, commercial level compost windrow field?
There are, I think, 7 certified composting processing facilities in this 10-county region. One of them is managed by Emmet County, and they do awesome tours. I would recommend seeing their whole recycling stream system. It's very impressive. You can see Lindsey is a passionate and effective speaker, so hopefully you can get her for your tour. In Leelanau County, Kroll's Compost is often available to go on tours, and I think they'll be hosting, this is a good plug for September, which date TBD. The entire state of Michigan will be hosting compost processing open houses. So we're hoping to get, I don't know, half a dozen places in northern Michigan at least open on that date in September, or it'll happen over the course of a week. But during that week, if you go downstate, you can see some really phenomenal operations, like Country Oaks in Burton, Michigan is doing an aerated static pile system that we did a field trip this winter to go visit their operation and see if we could bring something like that home. There's look out, we'll get them one of our mailing lists, and we'll make sure that you know the date of these September tours. It's still TBD. It'll be in September. There'll be a week in September where
Usually the second week in September, and it's a full week, and we try to do it by region so that people can do, like Northwest Michigan, and then Southeast Michigan has a variety of different composting facilities, and then obviously the Grand Rapids area, they have a variety of different scale, and of course Ann Arbor probably has the largest and most comprehensive citywide composting program, and that's managed by We Care Denali, which also manages Grand Rapids yard waste and composting facility. And I know that We Care Denali has also looked to Grand Traverse County just based on the sheer scale of the potential. And they have a little formula that they use for like how much yard waste is there, how much food waste, and how do you build larger centralized composting systems. And the importance and the intersection between community composting and really large-scale composting is really important in Michigan, and we need an all-of-the-above strategy to get there. We need the community composters because they're the educators. They're the ones that teach people about soil and create really good composters. And then those large-scale municipalities and counties and these large private providers need good quality yard waste to make their product. And so the synergies between all three of us are really important. And so that's the Great Michigan Compost Tour. It'll be year number 3 in 2024. Interrotten. Yes, we can't forget about them.
and the school, Interlochen.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And Sears, Michigan, you can go see Morgan's Composting. There's
It's Dairy Do. If
Great.
everyone's
Yeah, where Dairy
Thank
Do
you
is
so
made.
much for all these answers. they were not prepared ahead of time. And I want to remind everybody about recycling. Recycle all the information you got today with your friends and neighbors, because I think word of mouth builds the community and people will learn more and more and take action. We do have comment? I'm sorry, because this is on remote, nobody in Antrim County will be able to hear what you're saying, so it has to be brought up here by a card.
Maybe we could repeat the question.
I can repeat your question, it's okay. Okay, so the question was in regards to using cardboard in composting operations, and he said because of the laminates and things, not all paper's compostable. And just like laminated or treated wood, not all wood is compostable as well. So anything that's laminated or treated, painted, stained, or treated lumber, obviously plywood, those all things have glues and laminates and things that would make them not be friendly for composting operations. There are large-scale operations. There's one in southern Michigan, Cocoa, that is using laminated wood and scaling and really experimenting scientifically with how to break down those materials into organic materials. But for the most part, you want to avoid those because they've been chemically treated.
Thank you, Lindsey. And thank you to our presenters for being here today, and Jackie for doing our interpreting for our viewers. Appreciate that very much. And thank you to the audience for your attention. I'd also like to thank the League's Environmental Committee, especially Carrie Olmsted, for organizing this program. We would appreciate your comments about this event using the evaluation forms that are provided. Are those at the back of the room? Okay. They've already been passed out. Great. So if you could tell us what you thought and how we could do better in the future, we'd appreciate that. And then just return, you can either leave it on your chair or return it to a League member as you leave. And remember, you can access this program on the Traverse Area Community Media website and the League of Women Voters Grand Traverse Area Facebook page, and also on Spectrum Cable Channel 189 in Northwest Lower Michigan. To find out more about the League of Women Voters and all of the wonderful things we do, or to consider joining, please visit our website. Thanks so much for coming today.
Wonderful to be here.